deeper into the digital archives of Mercedes-Benz. And it's not only Mercedes-Benz, it's also the company, the corporate history of Daimler AG in general. Let me talk briefly a little bit to you about who we are and what we do at Mercedes-Benz Classic. We are part of the brand communication of Mercedes-Benz. And that already means that in addition to collecting and preserving everything that is important for the history of the company, the brands and the products, our second most important job is about communication. And since a number of years, storytelling, and this is the overall topic of our conference here, is of growing importance. And we also try to do that more and more in different ways. The most important platform for our brand, which some of you hopefully know already, if not, you gotta come, as with each and every museum, is a Mercedes-Benz museum in Stuttgart, nearby where Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach worked some 130 years ago. The new museum is now 10 years old, a little bit more than 10 years old, and attracts around 800,000 visitors annually. So it's really the most important platform where visitors get in touch with the brand, with the history in general, what has happened in these 130 years, and of course with the products. We have about 160 cars, trucks, race cars in the museum. We also take care of the old Mercedes-Benz cars, which are still on the road by, for example, making spare parts for all of them. Not each and every part, but at least those who are important to keep them running. We can also take advantage of all the drawings, all the product documentations we have in the archives, so we can look at the drawings and either build the respective parts on our own or order it from some partners. There are more than 80 Mercedes-Benz Clubs around the world, which we are taking care of, working together with them and many more Mercedes-Benz enthusiasts around the world, and this already shows how important today it is for us to work on an electronical, on a digital basis to reach out to all these enthusiastic people. We also take care about the future of the historic vehicles, in particular of those which are in our collection, so that they can be driven not only now, and I'm gonna show you a few examples in a few minutes, but also in years and decades to come, which isn't an easy task, but that would fill another hour or so. Again, in order to keep the cars running, they need to be maintained and sometimes even restored. And again, we can take advantage of all the material, the drawings and information about the cars which are documented in the archives, how to restore them in a way that they are pretty much as original as they ran off the production line. And we have, as the inventor of the automobile, that's simple, the oldest vehicle collection of about 1,100 cars and trucks and race cars, show cars, prototypes, which have, as I said, to be maintained, and we're very proud of this collection. And we use the cars. As you can see here with a 540K Streamliner from 1938 in one of our wind channels. And that was a major communication project after restoring the car to the condition as you can see it right here. Particularly proud we are because since 2011 we are part of the UNESCO's World Heritage Program. on the occasion of the 125th anniversary of the invention of the automobile by Carl Benz. His patent, together with some other documents like the first driver's license, if you want, which the city of Mannheim provided to Carl Benz, and government of Baden, and all these documents are kept in our archives. The archives, to some extent, are also part of this UNESCO program, which makes it pretty special. But now that already leads us into the archives. This is the actual location where we are, where we have the offices. It's in Fellbach, about 10 miles from, or 15 kilometers out of Stuttgart from the museum. And behind the office building there is a large storage hall where we are keeping all the documents as you do in your archives. This is what it looks inside, as most of the archives look like. Overall, it's about 15 kilometers in length if you put all the files together. We have about 3.5 million pictures, many hours of video footage and other material. Even if it says here it's accessible to certain target groups, we don't do tours in the archives. Only if, for example, some of you would come, of course, we would give you a tour, but not to the general public, not even to our clubs, because that would keep us too much from working, because there are so many people interested in tours. So we usually tell them, please go to the museum. You find parts of the content from the archive there as well. But that was one of the reasons why we decided to make at least some part of the content, of the digital content, accessible to the public. And this is what it looks like. We have created this key visual, which, if you're interested in historic Mercedes-Benz cars, you will see more often. There's also a little brochure on the table at the entrance, or glued to the brochure is a small info card with a very helpful smartphone cleaner on top of it. And we have started this year a marketing campaign to make Classic Mars, as we call it, a digital platform of our archives content, better known, not only to the Mercedes enthusiasts who already know it, all these club members around the world, for example, but also to the general public. So you got to do something. So we got to provide this in printed form. Sorry, at the moment it's only in German, but it's more pictures than copy. This week in Essen, there's the biggest international trade fair for classic cars going on. So this is where we start with this marketing campaign for Classic Mars. And here are some. Does it look like? Yeah, it looks weird. But since we started this in 2015. And in these a little bit more than 2 years, we have already 1.2 million visitors to the platform. They have downloaded around 70,000 pictures, mostly pictures, sometimes documents, texts whatsoever. Currently, we have about 20,000 images in the system. More than 20 hours of video footage here, and almost 5,000 different topics, most of them at the moment being product-related topics in the system. And we are expanding it constantly and using the expansion again for communication. For example, if we add another section for motorsports topics, we would release a press release and do some online communication, so people would have another or a new reason to go into classic Mars and use it. Frankly, it was not an easy decision. We have this Mars database since a little bit more than 20 years now, when we started digitalizing parts of the archives content, but only for our own purposes. And then a little bit later, we made it accessible upon request, as some of the colleagues told us before, for, let's say, journalists, researchers, students, but only upon request with a certain interest in writing an article in a magazine or a book or whatsoever. And then a little bit than 2 years ago, we had the discussion if we should open it up, at least some parts of it, to the general public. And finally, we made this decision because, as I said, we want to communicate our content, not only by ourselves, but through all the people who are interested in using the material, which has some risks. For example, there's quite a number of people, small companies, who are building fake cars, and so that's something we of course don't want to have. So there are no drawings or no detailed information in the system that would allow people to build a Mercedes-Benz, which sometimes might be worth many million euros, dollars, kronas, whatsoever. And another another aspect was that we reduced the size of the pictures in the system to about a mid-size resolution, so it can't be misused to produce calendars or even bigger pictures for commercial use. That sometimes happens if we become aware of it. Our legal department would sue people who are then selling calendars with our pictures. But that's something you simply have to accept, that people will do whatever they think they want to do if you make your content accessible. So, and this is what it actually looks like. Let's pretend you are interested in a mid-sized car from the 1970s or 80s. You would go into the system, then click on passenger cars. Then it's pretty simple. You just look into what you are interested in. By the way, if you already know what you're looking for, you just put it into the search function. For example, in this case, the internal type would be W123. If you're looking for such a type or car, you just type it in and get directly there. But if you're not sure what you want to have, you just go through the whole script here. In this case, Mercedes-Benz since 1946, and then sedans, mid-size sedans. Then the 1970s and early 1980s, and then you can choose from explanatory text, pictures, videos, and documents about this type of cars. If you want to have a picture, you click on that, you get a range of pictures being offered, and it simply works like if you buy something on eBay or somewhere else on the internet. You just look what you want to have. By the way, of course, it works on a global level, but at no costs. That was another decision we made, that we will not ask for any money. Simply, it's also too complicated for us, because we would need additional people who would have to control it, all the payments. And then we said, no, we want to communicate it without any payment. You decide you want to have these 4 cars here, so you click and download it. You get an explanation of what can be seen. And by the way, that's the big difference to what Catherine told us yesterday compared to Wikipedia. And someone yesterday morning said the archivists are the truth keepers. We're the truth keepers. So what you find here is the truth. The data is, we knock on wood, hopefully exact. about any kind of car and engine and so on and so forth you find here on Wikipedia, it might be okay or it might be not. But here it is, and of course we would be glad if any writer of Wikipedia use our information, and then it's safer there as well. So you have decided for this picture, you accept the terms of use, and select the format. As I said, it's rather mid-size, but you can choose different formats. And then your download is being processed. And finally, it's available wherever you are, you can use it. Two quick other examples here from motorsports. It always works the same. You know, you want to see something from motorsports victories of Mercedes-Benz from the 1950s. There was a double victory at the race at the Swedish Grand Prix in Kristianstad in the two different classes. Mercedes-Benz, otherwise I wouldn't have chosen this example, was first and second. And then you can go a little bit closer, find some pictures from the preparations for the race and also from the actual race. You might be interested in that one. The colleagues from Denmark might be interested because it's not in Sweden, it's in Denmark. They drove the sports cars, not the race cars, they were transported. But they drove, here Fangio, Lundgren and Carl Kling drove the sports cars on their own axles from Stuttgart to Kristianstad, stopping at, if I know that right, in Copenhagen. Is that right? Anybody? Okay, even better, but you're, yeah. So another example, it's not only product, it's also corporate history. One of the possibilities to find something from corporate history is go through the Illustrated Chronicle, which of course is also available as a book, but here it goes much faster if you are interested in a certain topic. Let's pretend you're from Sindelfingen, which is still the location of our biggest plant, some 20 kilometers out of Stuttgart. And it was founded, and if you're a writer for the city government of Sindelfingen, have to write something about the establishment of the plant. You would find it here, the information that it was purchased by Daimler Motorengesellschaft in July 1915 during the First World War. And then you get, for example, the site plan of the plant attached to the, not city at the time, town of Sindelfingen, which you then can also download. So that was pretty much it in terms of what we do with Classic Mars, offering some of our content to everybody who's interested in it. Of course, we also use not all the material, but some of the materials we have in the archives and some of the cars in the collection for our own communication purposes. We do a strategic planning. And Ben was talking about this morning, so we do this in a very straight way together with our colleagues from the new car communication. This year everything's about sportiness, because we also have an anniversary of 50 years of Mercedes AMG. So we don't want to celebrate only AMG, but show that sportiness has also parts of the genes of Mercedes-Benz. And from my personal point of view, the best way to do that is at the Mille Miglia in Italia. So next month in Brescia, we're going to bring some of our race and sports cars at the start to run down to Rome and back, about 1,500 kilometers, as they did decades ago. On the upper left is Rudolf Caracciola, who one in 1927. And on the lower right is Sterling Moss, together with Dennis Jenkinson in 1955, who did it in 10 hours and a little bit more than 30 minutes, which I still don't understand how this was possible, but it's fascinating. It's a myth, and this is what Ben said this morning. There is historic truth, but we have extended it. Somehow we managed it, if on purpose or accidental, I don't know, or both probably, to extend this history into a myth of the brand. And this is a reason enough to come back to Italy each and every year and not only drive those cars with hopefully some famous race drivers, but also then communicate what we are doing. Right away we do some live communication with some bloggers. If some of the race drivers in our cars then are being interviewed and hopefully tell good things about the brand. I mean, that's what they are being paid for. This is a kind of storytelling which extends that myth of the brand. We're the only non-Italian brand who has won the Mille Miglia twice, so that's reason enough, and it's fun. It's a lot of wonderful environment and maybe, I don't know if martini or at least some other red wines and beautiful landscapes. So it's great, it attracts very many people. And thanks to the technicians in the back who made this short video running with a few other examples from how we use our content, in this case some video footage, to extend the brand communication in a historical dimension.
Welcome back. Today is all about firsts. These are some of the groundbreaking innovations brought to the road by Mercedes-Benz. Number 5. The world's very first car journey was a pretty bumpy ride with the Benz Patentwagen number 1 back in 1886. Number 4. The gasoline direct injection hit the road in series with the 300 SL Gullwing in 1954. Number 3. ABS, keeping you on track since 1978 and making the world a safer place. Number 2. The airbag, hardly seen but good to have, made available by Mercedes-Benz in 1981. Number 1. A great outlook. In the future, Mercedes-Benz will bring you autonomous driving, already tested today on urban and even interurban routes. Want to be a first mover? Subscribe and let us know what to cover next in the comments. Yours truly, Best of Benz.
One last remark relating to the last picture. Whatever we do should not only refer to the history, either it's in a museum or at some events or in our communication activities, but always have a look into the future, a perspective that we bring both together. See, we did these great things, built these great cars in the past. In their times, they were very innovative, and this is what we are doing today and what we will be doing in the future. So not just talking about history for itself. So that's pretty much it. If you want to learn more, pick up one of these little cards or see us here at Mars. Thank you very much, and I will be glad to discuss any issues you would like to discuss. Anders is the one who's...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Yuko had a question right away.
Because last year, Toyota launched a Corolla 50th anniversary website, and they put lots of digitized images of historical images on the web, and it's downloadable, and they prepare two kinds of formats, in high resolution, low resolution. I'm interested in the terms of use. It's downloadable, and you can use, I'm talking about Toyota's case, downloadable and you can use except for only non-commercial purposes. So what's your policy on reuse of your image?
I'm not sure if I got the last point right, what Toyota didn't do.
No, didn't do. They allow people to download and use it only for non-commercial purposes.
Yes.
See?
Yeah, that's pretty much the same policy, but then there are two things. You have to be aware that somebody's using it for commercial purposes, and then you still have to decide, even if you get to know about it, is this something that it's worth to be sued? If you want to start a litigation, this is not an easy thing. I've learned a lot from our lawyers about that. Sometimes, if it's a bigger thing, you probably have to do it to make clear there's a certain limit or a certain border where you will not accept others to use your material commercially. But in other cases, you would say, okay, if he's selling a poster on the internet, this will help to distribute this famous story about the Mille Miglia in 1955 or whenever, and simply accept it. So it's not easy to give a clear, final answer, but something that probably all of us, if you are given something out, have to deal with.
Thank you. Ben, and then Ted.
Great presentation, Jürgen, and
Thank you,
a
Ben.
great use of history by a company. This is a great example how a company can use history in several ways. I was wondering.
May I say something real quick, which is important, and not because you mentioned Volkswagen. We saw Porsche beside Hitler on one of the pictures. We started pretty late in the 1980s, but we also dealt with the history of Daimler-Benz during the Nazi time, and then we had commissioned a second book about forced labor because the first one wasn't sufficient, wasn't good enough. It's not easy still today to deal with these issues, but it has been mentioned by you this morning and by other colleagues. It's important. You won't tell each and every detail, but you gotta at least show you're open and you are dealing with such issues. But sorry, that was not your point.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was
Neil
interesting.
Gregor's book, I know it. Yeah, it's good. I was just wondering, because I have an interest in fashion, as you know, and I know that Mercedes is supporting a lot of fashion weeks
the
in
fashion
the world.
weeks.
And I don't know when it started. Is it possible to come in the archive and look for strategic material that where did they decide to support fashion?
I would be glad if you came and we can, but maybe in advance it makes more sense, see what we've got, because that's not critical. It's important if you're a luxury brand, as we are, even more so with Mercedes AMG, and that's more the sporty brand, but with Mercedes Maybach. We're a supporter of the fashion weeks around the world since quite a number of years, but I'm not sure at the moment what we have, so, but come and we'll look together.
Yeah, but more general, is it possible to see strategic documents?
And absolutely.
Okay.
And
Fantastic.
also, this has a history. They started already in the 1920s and 30s, so there were female drivers in quite modern suits, together with Mercedes-Benz cars. So obviously that was something they used already for the luxury brand of the 1920s and 30s.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you.
Ted?
Hey, I'm on your site, and even on a smartphone, it's very good. I'm excited to get back home and steal from it, and hopefully recreate it for Coca-Cola. One of the questions, I saw images on there that had personalities like Sterling Moss and others. What did your legal weigh in on that? We're not allowed to use the Sterling Moss image. He was a Coke spokesperson.
It's quite expensive.
Yeah, okay, so you... So I looked and most of the images were just cars, and that's fine. We can do bottles and ads. We just can't do anything that has a real person in it. Do you follow those same rules?
Yeah, basic rule, strictest basic rule, we only put pictures on classic Mars where we are 100 or better, 120 or 150% sure that we own them. Sometimes there might be a conflict coming up anyway, hopefully not Sterling, but I mean, at the time when he was driving for us, he had a contract, so it was our, we own those pictures and the history, if you want, that's what they sign up for. In other cases, it might be more difficult. So if we're not sure, we keep it, of course. And then in our internal, Mars is also our internal digital platform. There will be a mark then saying like not for the public because we're not sure or we do not have the rights or whatever. There was an example a couple of years ago with our own classic calendar. We did kind of a collage sort of thing through all the decades, and from the 1950s or 60s, I don't know it exactly anymore. We had one cool sports car together with Sophia Loren, and her lawyers then approached us and said, no, you're not allowed. Yeah. So you better make sure you're absolutely right in advance whether or not you have the rights.
Wonderful. One final question over there. Or actually, we have two more questions. So one there.
I think when I saw your presentation, cars can be used for good purposes and bad purposes, and maybe sometimes afterwards, when you talk about Toyota, I think they regret they had this big brand on the back of their pickups, because now you can see them when you see movies with Isis. And also when I think about Mercedes in the past, I think about Hitler standing in a Mercedes driving through Berlin and something. So I think it must be an issue for car dealers to deal with these things when they do their museum work and stuff.
Absolutely.
The question is, that's quite another question, sorry. The question, you told that when you restore a car, you always bring it back to the conditions from when it left the factory.
Yes.
And well, in our archives and museum, we also deal with old cars. We have fire engines and ambulances, and we have a lot of Mercedes there, I can tell you.
We can help.
Yeah,
Let me know.
But you know,
but we're not buying fire engines. This is too complicated and too costly.
I have a lot of Mercedes in my museum, but you know, I went to visit the German. There's a very nice German Feuerwehr museum, and the director there, he talked about that you could kaputt restaurier a vehicle by taking it back to the condition. You know, when he receives an old fire truck for his museum, he always takes into consideration, should I restore it as it was when it came into function, or should I keep it with all the damages that happened over the years, and they changed it and maybe put some other lights on and whatever how they changed the car. And this is something we also consider for our museum and say, well, it's always nice to bring the car back to the really nice condition, but on the other hand, you will also lose some history if you always have that policy.
Yes, this is a constant discussion and a necessary discussion, I think, and since a number of years, also collectors like those who are gathering in Pebble Beach each and every year are referring more to the original condition, and if it's possible to keep it, if the car has original elements, can be better. There's always a number of, especially in the US, of over-restored cars, which then don't have that much to do with how they left the production line. And our policy is that we look at each and every vehicle, and if we see there's a lot of historical substance, we'd rather leave it and touching it in so far as it needs to be touched to keep it, that it doesn't fall apart. In other cases, like with the silver streamliner you saw on the first chart, we only had parts of the frame, engine, drivetrain, so it was completely based on the drawings we have in the archives, built up from scratch. So then it's a different situation. But I think it's necessary that you always look at this question and then make the hopefully right decision, and do not destroy historical substance. but that's up to each and every responsible person in a company or up to the private collectors. Maybe one quick comment on your first statement. It is ambivalent. We don't, as I said, want to hide with what the company did during the Nazi time, and you would find some pictures as well on classic Mars, but we will not promote it actively. We try to deal with it and show the company started at least in the 1980s to deal with its Nazi past. But we will not show, for example, 770, which was the kind of Mercedes Hitler was driving pretty often, or other Nazi members of the government. We would not show it and saying like this is the car Hitler drove. So I think you always got to watch out that you don't promote the wrong interests.
Tracy.
Great presentation. Thank you. And if you're at Pebble Beach anytime, you should stop in at the Levi Strauss Archives, San Francisco.
Thank you.
I was intrigued by the UNESCO Memory of the World recognition that you received. Can you comment about that and how?
It was a big black box. We applied. It took several years. We knew, like in 2011, we will have the 125th anniversary of the invention of the automobile by Carl Benz, and then we applied. And this goes through several steps on a regional, national, and international level, and we did it all. But then, latest, if it comes to the international level, you don't know anymore. And that's what I mean with black box, what's happening. And then some groups of people somewhere in Paris or elsewhere deal with all the applications, and you don't hear from it anymore. And then finally here, yes, you're in the game or you're out, and then you have to wait again. And I think we were lucky. It always has to do with how many applications from certain countries on a certain topic are in a specific year, and it also was something that they didn't have in their range so far. I mean, there's the Ninth Symphony by Beethoven, the Magna Carta, and the Declaration of Independence and such stuff, but there was nothing related to an automobile, or not even something technical from other industries. So there was a gap, so we filled this gap. We're lucky that they accepted it. But it's great. It helps to bring it even higher.
Thank you so much, Jürgen.
Thank you again.